Hello, hello. Tonight's video is for a mesh curls wreath, similar to the one I did for Christmas. This one is going to be for Easter. So you're going to need a wreath frame. The green wire wreath frames work really well. Quite a few pipe cleaners and 10 rolls of mesh if you get the kind from the Dollar Tree. If you get Hobby Lobby's kind, they're twice as long, so then you would only need roughly 5 of those. So what I've done is I've purchased 4 different colors. So I've got turquoise, white, lavender, and pink. And what I did was 3 rolls each of the pink and turquoise, and 2 rolls each of the purple and white. So that gives me 10 rolls altogether. And we're just going to kind of be mixing those up as we go around the wreath. If you've seen my Christmas video, then it's the same kind of concept. We're just going to randomly mix those up. And then we have some options for things to add to this Easter wreath. And this is kind of fly by the seat of your pants, so I'm not exactly sure what this is going to look like. So it'll be fun to kind of puzzle that and figure it out. But here is a sign. This is a cardboard sign, pretty hard cardboard, almost like plastic. But this was from the Dollar Tree. And then I have some options here in terms of a set of bunny ears and some other decorative options. These have little bunnies on them, and then some eggs, or these are supposed to be like eggs. And then I have actually a bunch of different colors of eggs. These all came from the craft outlet, so we're using those as possible options. And then I have 2 ribbons that I got from Hobby Lobby, and these are just a couple of ribbons from their Easter section that is currently, I believe, 40% off. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to weave these in, if I'm going to do a ribbon wreath with ribbons all the way around, or more likely what I do for the mesh curl wreaths is just one big bow, if there's room for that with the other thing. So we're just going to kind of play around and see what we can come up with. And I will show you how I first did this wreath. So the wreath frame is the large version. I believe this is the 18-inch one. This is also from Hobby Lobby. You can buy these at a number of different places. Walmart, Joann, Michaels. Actually, this is the 16-inch wreath version. The Dollar Tree sells, I believe, a 12. There's also a 14. There's an 18, and I believe there's a 20 or 22. So however big you want to go. But for this 16-inch size, you'll need about 10 rolls of mesh. So what we're going to do is first, let me explain the pipe cleaners here. So what I did is these are pipe cleaners that are cut roughly in half. Some of them are remnants from other projects I've done that I hang on to specifically for this kind of wreath, and then others I just cut pipe cleaners in half. So we are looking at several different ones in each section. So I've got, what I started out with is in each section, looks like it's better right here for me to show you. So this is what I'm calling one section between these 2 bars right here. Okay, so with each section, I attached one to the top and bottom rings, and then what I did is I took one and attached it to the top 2 rings and the bottom 2 rings, and then I put one in the middle 2 rings on each side. So you can see how I did that. So with each section, you're looking at 2, 4, 6, 8 halves, so 4 pipe cleaners basically in each section. And I just went all the way around the wreath. The colors are not particularly important because you're not going to see those. You guys will probably remember I like my wreaths really full, so there's going to be a lot of mesh on here, and you won't be able to see these things through the back. If you don't like your wreaths as full, then you can certainly use light colored pipe cleaners or even the white ones, and then you won't see those as much. So let's just get started and see where we land. So we'll get our pipe cleaner situated here. You can also use zip ties, twist ties, you know, there's any number of things that you can use to hold these together. So we're going to take one piece and just roll it up like that and do our best to hold on to that one while we grab another one. And we roll that one up. And pinch that together. You can see these are not perfect. They're not super neat. It's just, this is one of the more fun, whimsical styles of wreath, so we don't get too worried about that. Okay, so then we'll do white. Sometimes they're a little tricky to roll up. Okay, so let's start here at the top. So I'm just going to take these three right here. They're just pinched, nothing fancy. Put those in the middle there. Pull the ends of the pipe cleaner up and cinch that down pretty tight, as tight a grip on it there, and give that a good few turns. Now, later on, what we'll do, once we're sure we like everything and the thickness and we don't want to go back and add pieces in, then we'll trim all these pipe cleaners. So don't worry about that for now, because we may add in some more pieces on some of them if we see some empty spots or something like that. So that's what you're going to do. And you just work your way around the wreath. And this is the time-consuming part. Cutting each of these is time-consuming too, which, by the way, I didn't mention that. These are 9 inches each. So each one of these, I stretched it out 9 inches on my cutting board and then just zipped that off. So 9-inch pieces of these, and just use the entire roll. So, because I have more pink and blue, I will make sure that one of those is in each combination. So I've got a slightly different combination here. This stuff is pretty durable. The ends, you know, they like to fray and stuff like that, so you kind of have to be careful with the ends. And I like to trim them up a little bit. I don't want them to be too crazy, so I do that at the end. But this is, you know, certainly not one of those super perfect wreaths, so it's going to be, as I said, pretty whimsical, and you're just going to have to get okay with that if you're used to doing wreaths that are very, you know, sort of pristine. So we've got that, and then I'm just kind of grabbing whatever strikes my fancy as I go along. And because there are going to be so many attachments, you're not going to notice colors that stand out. They're just going to be so close together that there shouldn't be any problem like that. If there is, then we deal with that after the fact, and that is not a big deal. We can always go in and add. I did buy a couple extra rolls of mesh. I just happened to grab pink in case I needed some more, you know, just in case. So I like to have that on hand versus, you know, having to stop a project midway through and go get it. And I can always find a use. So this mesh is the decorative mesh, as I said, from Dollar Tree, and it is 6 inches by 5 yards. So this is their version of mesh. And you can find, they'll have seasonal ones like this, so this obviously is for Easter. And then they have their regular kind that's 6 inches by 5 yards that they have all year round in various colors. So you can, whenever I see it, I generally buy a lot because the Dollar Trees around here run out of mesh very quickly for whatever reason. So I really snatch all that up. And like I said, I'd rather have too much than too little. and I'll hang on to it. You know, it doesn't go bad or anything, so I'll hang on to that until I need it for another project or until the next season, so the next Easter or Christmas or whatever. Like I said, the mesh has so many uses, you can always find something to do with it. So I'm just going to make my way around here and mix the colors up as I go. Just rolling those up and doing bundles of 3. So you'll notice that when I do these in the middle, I grab 2 rungs. If you grab just one, they tend to slide all over the place. So I grab 2, and they will still move, but I really try to cinch that down and grab 2 rungs. So like this one is sliding, I'll have to tighten that up. And then these I try to attach to the corners or the welds here. So this one you can see is attached, and this is what it looks like when it's not attached. It just rolls all over the place. So we want to make sure that that is wrapped around that piece right there. And again, you know, they're going to be really close together, so you can move them around if you need to. Again, don't worry about having it just too perfect, because these are pretty forgiving wreaths, actually. One of the reasons I like them, even though they are pretty time consuming. Okay, so I've made it all the way around, and I think that it still has some spots that need to be filled out. So you can see there's kind of a dip over here, so I want to add some there. We'll make sure these are all turned the right way first, but there are some gaps where I feel like we should put some more in there. So what I've done is I've taken a handful of pipe cleaners and cut them in half, and what we'll do is just find those spots and plug in a bunch or 2 to fill in the gaps. So sometimes you can kind of close some of those gaps by doing some of this, but I want the wreath to be really full and not need a whole bunch of manipulation by my customers. So I love the colors and the glistening that it does when the light hits it. So I'm really excited about this. Just want it to be a little fuller. So I'm going to just open up the spots a little bit. And then, as I said, I've got my cut in half pipe cleaners, and I'm doing this one in the middle. This stuff gets a little intrusive. So I've got the 2 middle rings together, and just give that a couple of good twists, and then just grab 3 spirals, we'll call them. Get those rolled up. And plug those in there. Get that really tight. It becomes more difficult as the wreath gets fuller, but I just really think it's worth it. So there's another gap. It's hard to see it on the camera, but I can see the green rings coming through. So I'm going to split that open, grab another pipe cleaner, Go with those 2 middle rungs again and twist that a couple times. So I've gone through and added in bunches where I thought there were gaps and open spaces, and I think it looks much better, much fuller. What I have left from those 10 rolls is just these few cuts of turquoise. So what I'm actually going to do, instead of trying to corral these in my craft room, I'm actually going to do a bit of a different technique. So um, you take just the single piece and roll that up, and then you can look for smaller spots that you might be able to fill in. And then what you do is you take the piece and you actually just weave it through a rung or two, and then it just sits in there by itself. So it's not going to move once this is all put together. It's going to be just as tight as everything else, but that gives you an opportunity to use up, if you have a few random pieces left, and also to fill in anywhere you think you could use a little spot of additional mesh. And it also gives you the opportunity to put in color where you might be missing some. So if for whatever reason your bundles or bunches, your groups of rolls resulted in a lack of a particular color, then this is a way to kind of fill that in too. So if you have a spot that's got a lot of white in it or a lot of pink or whatever, then you can add one of these small rolls in, and it just changes that up really quickly. So next we go through and trim all the pipe cleaners. So only some of them can you actually see. There's a yellow one here that's kind of visible. You don't actually have to trim them all if you don't want to. I like to make sure I get them all just to be sure that nothing is sticking out. So I've got my little clippers here from Harbor Freight. These are awesome. They're small and easy to get into. They're pointed so they're easy to dig into some of this mesh. And these little pieces I'm just throwing away. They're not big enough to do anything with, so just clipping those off, and that way it's down to the knot or the twist. So I'll just go around the whole thing and get those clipped off. So the next piece is to attach my sign, and it's got a ribbon on it that goes through both sides of the sign, and I'm going to use a small zip tie and attach that to the outermost ring. And before I lock that in place, I want to take a look and see what it looks like. Move everything out of the way, and I think that'll be pretty good. So we'll attach that to that top ring. With the zip tie, clip that end off. This is another set of clippers from Harbor Freight, so these are a little longer, and I use these to cut plastic, like zip ties and things like that. The other ones are sharper. Those were specifically for cutting metal. So there are some little straggling pieces here that obviously stand out, so I will grab those. Others, I mean, they're all around the wreath, so that's part of the character, but if there are some that are pretty prominent, then I'll just pop those off. So the next thing to decide is what we're going to add to the wreath. So if we look at our options here, we have, let's get that centered, and I have a set of rabbit ears for one. These are so adorable. Again, these are from Craft Outlet, so I can play around and see where I want to put these. Do I want them at the top? Do I want them on the side this way? And actually, I'm going to forego the rabbit ears on this one. I think I'll do another wreath and use that. So let's see, the next option is this spray, and this actually can be broken into multiple pieces and distributed throughout the wreath if we want to do that. This is another adorable piece from Craft Outlet. These are actually little pom-poms on the end on their bums for tails, so they are just super cute. So let's see. Do we want to have this coming out of the wreath somehow? So we can put it up top, or we can break up the pieces and put it throughout, or put it on the side. And I think I might want to split the pieces up and use that. The other thing we have is these eggs, and I also have from Dollar Tree some gold eggs. I didn't think the gold really went with this, so I'm going to hold off on those for another project, but those are really cute. There's 4 in a packet, and those are just $1. So those are fun. Our other option here is these eggs. So we can look at adding these in. Just kind of stab these in here to get a basic idea. And I think that might actually be our cutest option, to work these in. See, we have 5, so we'll have to spread those out. And I think what I'm going to do is put a bow here at the top, so I don't actually need one at the top. Let's bring that one down to the bottom. And just kind of trying to evenly space these. And they're not attached, I'm just playing around to see if I can find a look that I like. Before I lock these into place. And these are on wire stems, so they'll bend and you can manipulate those into the spot that you want. So we can kind of spread those around. I think that's our best option so far with the pieces that I have. And then we'll let's get this one at a different angle. And we'll space those out a little better because it looks like they're kind of lopsided, but spreading those around and then adding a bow. So I have a few options. I have a wider ribbon and a narrower ribbon. The narrow ribbon by itself I think is too small for the size of this wreath. At this point our wreath is measuring about 2 feet wide. So this ribbon kind of ends up dwarfed on here. This one also has a lot of the same colors that I have in here, and then this is a 2.5 inch. So I think a large bow of this would look good at the top here. So I think that's what I'm going to do is put the eggs in, get these spread out the way that I want them, and then use a big bow, and that'll be it. So let's make a bow. So this is a wired edge ribbon from Hobby Lobby that is currently on sale for Easter. And what I do for the bows, a lot of times I like to use my Pro bow, and that makes the most beautiful bows. But since we're just working with one ribbon, I will just freehand this one and see if we can't make something that looks really cute. So you can do a couple of different things. One, you can have a centerpiece in the middle, so you just fold this around into a circle, and then you start working from there, and that's your centerpiece. Or you can immediately start making the loops and do it that way. I'm going to do a centerpiece in the middle. I like that look. So I'm making this pretty sizable because, again, our wreath is pretty big. So I find that I need my bows to be a lot bigger than I think. So you'll see that the loops are going to be pretty big. But for now, let me give you guys a measurement on this for that centerpiece, because that's the piece from which you start and do everything else. So we want to make sure you have an idea what that is. So basically, this looks like about roughly 8 inches that I'm using to fold over and make that centerpiece. Okay, then where this meets, where these two pieces meet right here, I'm going to pinch that with my thumb, press that down, and make sure I have a good grip on that, and then start my loops. So I'll take my ribbon, and obviously we don't want this part to show. You can tell that's not the right side. Some ribbons you can get away with either side. This is not one of them. So we're going to pinch this, and then what we have to do is get to the other side of that ribbon. So we're going to twist and then pinch, use this finger to hold that. So I have my thumb on the inside and a finger on the bottom. And then I'm going to start my loops. So we're looking, again, we got to keep in mind we got about a 2-foot wreath here that we're working on. So we're going to have some pretty big loops, and they can be all different sizes. So for now, I'm going to start with this one. Give you guys an idea here. This is about another 8-inch loop. So got that. See, I'm holding it back here. Twist again. Hold that in place. Measure out. Let's make sure we're off to a good even start here. Okay, so bring that in a little bit. So now I have one loop on each side. And what you can do, you can measure it, and you can also just kind of put your fingers through and get those loops to match up. So that puts you off to an even start, and then we just keep going. So we twist and loop, and I'm going to stick with the same size for a couple of them. It's going to be a pretty big bow. Again, bearing in mind the size of our wreath being about 2 feet. So now we twist and loop. Now we have 2. All right, so now this one I'm going to go a little bigger. So just make that up a little higher. So probably an inch worth of ribbon, ½ inch on each side here, an inch worth of ribbon more. And this also doesn't have to be perfect, so I'm just kind of eyeballing that. You do want your start to be pretty accurate because you're going to be, measuring off of that. And so if the sides aren't the same, then one side's going to end up looking pretty lopsided. So we had this just a little bit bigger, and I'll use my finger to kind of measure that for that side. Do that again. And make that one the same. And just keep twisting and looping. It's not difficult at all, but it can be a little complicated to keep the ribbon all together in the right spots. So just takes practice. So we'll line those 2 up again, and then go to the next size. And again, just making it about an inch worth of ribbon larger. And let's do another one like that. You got to rotate your roll sometimes because with the twisting, of course, it gets twisted up. Okay, so now I've got my centerpiece here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on each side. So I'm not going to lock anything into place yet. I'm just going to check that out. So we'll get the wreath back over here, and we're just checking the size. So I'm going to put that up here and still holding it tightly in the middle. Just kind of spread these out to get a taste for, get an idea of what it's going to look like. So here's where we're at this point, and it's a little small. So we're going to add some more loops. So I'm going to go bigger right away. And again, just about that same increment. And then instead of doing 2 at that size, I'm going to go ahead and go bigger again, being mindful that I don't want to run out of ribbon, and I'm getting to the end. So this is 6 yards. A lot of times Hobby Lobby's ribbons are 30 feet, so that's much better. This one I have to be mindful because it's a smaller one. It's one of their seasonal ribbons. It's smaller for whatever reason. So I'm going to just go big right away instead of doing 2 like that. And then I just have to be careful that I have enough left to do my tails. And I think I'm going to be just about right. So we'll make that a little bigger, this one a little bigger, and then that's the end of our ribbon, guys. So now we're at the end. We're going to twist it and loop this. I'm going to loop this. Let's get a little tape off here. And so I've still got my finger in the middle on that center piece, and on the bottom holding all the twists. Then I'm just going to take the end of the ribbon, put it in the middle, same spot where those twists are, and then I like to use zip ties, the medium size zip tie, and just really cinch it up. So you can use floral wire, you can use zip ties, you can use pipe cleaners. To me, this works the best. And I feel like the tighter you get it, the more poofy the bows are coming out of it. And we certainly want poofy. So we'll clip that off. And see what we have. Before I clip the tail, I just like to make sure, because if for whatever reason it's not big enough, I can disassemble the bow and just start with larger loops right away. Hopefully I don't have to do that with this one. Maybe we nailed it. So now I'm just fluffing. So you can see this is all what it looks like, all fanned out. This ribbon is so pretty and springy bright. And then because I have this really tight, the zip tie, I can really kind of manhandle this a little bit and really make it stretch and go where I want it to. So I'll just take, these two were on top of each other, I'll just take those and twist them out. And then maybe one forward, turn a couple out, one forward, turn a couple out. So we have this nice poofy bow, and then we will kind of bring some of the pieces around, fill in some gaps, and then get it on our wreath. Okay. So we have the sign and the eggs we're going to fasten in after we're done. Want to make sure our bow is going to work. And so we put that right above where the sign is attached. And I think that's going to work great. So we'll go ahead and commit. And what we do next then is we take the tail, this one big piece, and fold that, crease it, and then give it a cut. And then I like to put tails on, or make the tails with the little chevron. So we just fold that over and clip those. So we're folding this over and clipping to the outside. Just basically cutting these little triangles out. Get rid of those. Then what I'll do is take another medium-sized zip tie and loop that through the other zip tie. So this is a little tricky because I did cinch this up pretty tightly, but you take that pointy end and you force it through. Got to make sure I've got it backwards. So let's flip that over. And we force that through. So now we have this that we can use to attach to the wreath frame. So we want to only do this once. So we'll take our sign, make sure that it is hanging exactly where we need it to be. In the middle as much as possible. Take our bow, and then so we're looking dead on here, and the sign is attached there. So we'll take this and attach right about the same place as much as possible. So there we go. Something's pokey there. That's the pipe cleaner. Here's where we have that attached. So what we can do is actually attach this bow around the ribbon. So we've got the ribbon of our sign here. And I'm actually just going to loop that around. And then fasten it. Rotate our bow, get our tails down there, and then fasten this to the top. Now, you don't want to pull it too tight because it'll make your bow sink down in, okay? But you do need it to be pretty stable. The beauty of these wreaths being really dense and thick is that they hold things in place for you, like ribbons. So we'll cinch that down, clip that off, and then take a look and see what we have here. So we pull these pieces all around. Basically, we're fluffing it up again because now we've had to manipulate it quite a bit to get it in here. So it's kind of gotten smashed. Again, wired ribbon. Non-wired ribbon is not going to hold like this for you. So you just take I'm just basically putting my fingers in those loops and pulling them and rounding them out. Takes a while to get them just the way you want. Down to my centerpiece here and get that rounded out. All right. I think we're getting there, guys. Okay, so now we have our bow added and got it all stretched out and distributed. And then it's just a matter of attaching the eggs. So now that our bow is there and centered, we can see kind of how far it's going to fan out, and then just make sure our eggs aren't hidden. So the first thing I like to do is, again, looking down the center line, place that egg first. So I'm just going to, this again is a wire on here, so I'm actually just going to feed that through. So you see that's coming down there. Let's go up a little. So the inner rung is the one I'm going to use. So I'm just fishing that around there. And then just bending this wire it's getting caught on the mesh, so it's making it a little tricky to maneuver. Now, I want my eggs to not be sitting straight up like this. I want them to be kind of splayed out so that you see more of it. So kind of at an angle. So that's going to take a little working. But basically, we can get it laid out like that so you can see more of it. So that's laid down the way I want it. And I've got this wire looped around, and now the end is sticking up here. So I'm actually just gonna weave that in and wrap it around the rest of the wreath. Give this a nice tight home. And it's not going anywhere. And then, voila, that's how that works. So, like I said, I don't want it sticking up like that. I feel like you can't see very much of it. The beauty of having these wires on here is you just kind of bend that down, and that lays out for you. Just a little detail, but I think it makes it makes a difference because then you see more of the egg. So then we have, the next thing I'll do then is go to the ones toward the top. So basically we had these kind of in these couple of places. This one needs to be moved. I like for these to be pretty evenly distributed when they're so distinctive like this, and they really stand out. You can tell if they're not laid in the right way. So we've got those two. This guy's going to come over here, and then this one over here like this. Okay, so I'm just going to fasten those by wrapping those wires around. Okay, so I've installed all the eggs, and here is our end game. Got the 5 eggs distributed evenly around, got the bow nice and fluffy, looks proportionate to the wreath, and that is the finished product. So this is the first Easter wreath of the season. I'd love to see you guys post in the comments the Easter wreaths that you do this season, or certainly if you try this one with these materials or similar materials or just any kind of a mesh curl wreath. Love to see what you guys come up with. If you have any questions, leave those for me in the comments, and be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe so that you can be notified of future videos. Thanks again for watching, guys. God bless.